Hello, everyone. How are you? Welcome to the Check Drop. Today is the 9th day of November, and this is the 22nd episode of the Check Drop. Time flies. Here we go. It's a whole new world now. I'm not going to get into politics, but let's jump right into the podcast. My guest today has been seen at numerous prestigious comedy festivals around the country and is currently touring the country as one of the opening acts for Bert Kreischer. Please welcome to the Check Drop, Mr. Comedian Dave Williamson. What's up, Dave?
Hey, Chuck, how's it going, man? I thought you were going to dip your toe into the politics here at the beginning. I go, this is going to be an interesting hour. I didn't know he was going to go there right off the gate.
No, I typically stick just to comedy and then whatever you like to plug. So like meat, like your meat hat or whatever.
We could talk about meat for sure. We'll definitely get to that.
Yeah, we'll dive into all this. So yeah, it's just simple comedy. The concept of this was, hey, I don't think any comedy agents are interviewing comedians, and I don't know of any of them out there. So that was something to just kill the time while I was killing COVID time, I guess.
I think it's awesome, man. I during this period of time, since from March till now, I've been super, I think, impressed with people who have even given a shit to pivot and stay busy and do things and create, versus the people who are just writing posts every week like, oh, I miss stand-up. We all miss stand-up. We all miss the, making money and having the greatest job on earth. Like, it is what it is. You got to do stuff. I was using the same program that you're using now to do this. At the very beginning, back in March, I just started doing barbecue in my front yard and was streaming it and bringing in guests and talking barbecue with them. And I'm like, I had to do something.
Right. I almost felt like a comedian myself. I was like, hey, I need to create content. Every comedian's always like content, create. So like, I almost kind of had to like, as an agent, telling my clients that like, hey, you need to create new stuff for me. I can't promote you on videos that are 12 years old type scenario. So I almost kind of felt just that, like, all right, well, let me practice what I preach and just keep busy and try to stir things up and
well, look, man, and it keeps everybody connected. It keeps the relationships alive. It's going to make when things do go back to normal, it's not like you're just calling people up out of the blue after a year, like, hey, I haven't talked to you. Let's go back to work. It's like, hey, man, you know what's been up with people,
Yeah, I wonder. I keep wondering too, like how many of those agencies that just have that approach, like the comedians that are sitting on their asses and not do anything, and they go under. So I haven't heard of any of those yet, but I assume that it's going to happen. There's clubs that have obviously gone under.
Yeah, all the ones I worked.
Which ones have you heard of? I've heard of a couple here and there. I heard Capital City and yeah.
Well, right before COVID, actually, one of my favorite clubs, the Comedy Mix up in Vancouver, they lost their lease, so they were already shut down and trying to find a new location, but it was hard. And then Cap City closed down right before COVID too. The chain of joke joints in Houston and Minneapolis, those closed down. And then, since COVID, I know, Cap City is the big one for sure. That was a shocker. And I don't know if there's any that have definitely.
I heard Dangerfields in New York. I heard that recently.
Yep. And then the other one too was that Jacksonville comedy. I don't know. It's all those like kind of borderline like A- B rooms that I've headlined for you. Those are the ones that are closing. So
yeah. Those little weekend rooms and such. Yeah, I actually had a room that just started in Waco, Texas, and they were doing great. They had they started on New Year's Eve and really great owners there, and they were just taking care of the comedians. Everything you want as an agent with a client that's taking care of the talent, paying good money, and then now all this hit. And
man, what a shame, because that would have been a big year for Waco if they got a great comedy club going and then also a Netflix miniseries this year. Huge.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Hey, now that we're in a whole new world after the election, I think everything is coming together, right?
I hope so.
Well, it is ironic, not to get, maybe this is political, but they did announce today about a vaccine. And
I know.
that obviously does help. That's what we're obviously holding on to for our business to open up, right? I mean that's the magical pill, I guess, to move forward in our crowd gathering business. So
yeah, look, man, I think that with with just everyone kind of getting on the same page and taking a lockdown seriously this time, and not trying to have half the people think it's a hoax and half the people taking it seriously. I think if we just all kind of came together and we're as cautious as possible, we could then get to the point where we are able to do things like what I've been doing with Bert on a bigger scale. And maybe instead of drive-ins, it's just like kind of amphitheaters. Like maybe some clubs can then do some outdoor stuff or open at limited capacity without thinking they're going to close down every week. But there's no way we're going to go back to comedy like we were before without a vaccine. I think that we need the vaccine to be able to pack 500 people in a theater shoulder to shoulder. And for us, especially in comedy, it's crazy because it's everything we always have been taught makes a good comedy show is what's terrible for a virus, right? It's
right.
It's people laughing, with their breath going out, packed in, low ceiling,
Yeah, it's funny because I even have as a good agent should, I have a little top 10 tips to run a successful comedy show. So I send those out. I've got them broken down, whether it's for a college or a corporate event type scenario, and in clubs as well. So, but I would send those out accordingly, and now it's like all right, well, we can get by now without that. Hey, always last resort outside. Now we're like, okay, maybe let's do it outside. And the old comedy moat where we say, hey, sit people all the way up close to the stage. So you don't need to put a drawbridge out to the laughter. That's in there. And now it's like, no, push them back.
In between every comic, tell them to go wash their hands.
Yeah, it's bananas. Yeah. So segue into that. So I had Jesus Trejo on here recently, and obviously I know you and he are some of the regular opening acts for Bert Kreischer, and I feel that you guys were quick to pivot before anybody, and even to now, I feel like you guys are out just killing it on the road, and I'm sure all the other comedians are kind of jealous of what you guys are doing. Tell the world what you guys did immediately after COVID hit to kind of segue into still being able to go out and work the road.
Yeah, I definitely when I post about it on social media and stuff, I try to be sensitive to the fact that I know that my fellow comedians and friends and coworkers have got to be jealous when they see us doing sets. So I try not to rub it in killing it, standing ovation, killing it. But
12,000 people outdoor gig.
But I'm super grateful, and it's totally the credit goes to Bert, man, because we were doing theaters before, and then in March we were in New Orleans, and they called us and said, hey, they're pulling all the tour dates. The NBA just canceled. Everything was started to crumble, right? And so we came back and we did the quarantine, and we all kind of did our own things to stay busy. I started podcasting heavy. Bert's got 74 podcasts. And then Bert
That's called,
all? Yeah, right. And then Bert called us in I think it was May, and he's like, hey man, we're putting a tour together in June. We're gonna go try out drive-in movie theaters and see if that works. So me and Jesus and Shane Torres got in the tour bus with him, and we drove to Charlotte, to your neck of the woods. And that was the very first one we did. And we had no idea whether it was going to work or not. And if it didn't work, we still had 3 more we were going to have to do on that trip. And Charlotte was the perfect one to do first, because that drive-in was really conducive, because it was kind of tiered on the side of a mountain. So it looked like kind of like theater seating, you could actually kind of have some sort of a connection to the cars in the back. Whereas a lot of them are just flat parking lots. So you're really only connecting with the first 2 rows of cars, Yeah. But that Charlotte show was awesome. Probably
it was sold out too. I think you did 2 shows, both sold out. I couldn't have got a ticket if I wanted to.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I would have gotten you a ticket if you asked.
Yeah, I knew that. I think it was my golf league night though. I was like, priorities.
I'm sure it was your golf night. but it was great. And then all the other shows were awesome. You know, there was a little bit of growing pains, like anything, like they had to figure out, just like flipping a comedy club, you know, they had to figure out how to flip a parking lot.
Yeah,
You know,
how does that even happen when, like, I mean, so all right, typically there's like an hour in between show times at a club. Like, how much time did you allot for the flipping of the room?
I think it's about an hour and a half, something like that.
Yeah.
So, and it's different for each one because some of them have like a back entrance, so they can filter the cars out and then bring the new cars in. You know,
Okay.
some of them are a little bit more difficult where there's only one access point, like, you know. But you know, this production company that's been putting them on and traveling and meeting us in each city, they've got it under control pretty good now. Like Indianapolis was the first one we did where there was 2 shows in one night, and that was when it was like, oh, we started the second show really late because we were on stage and there were still cars coming in, you know, and
Yeah.
but you know, just like anything, we figured it out.
How does this? I mean, traditionally, if people are watching or listening later on, the second show of like a Friday night or a Saturday night is full of like the drunks and the hecklers and such.
Yeah.
What in that scenario in a drive-in, like how does that work? I mean, because I assume everybody's just smuggling in all their booze inside their car, and they're just twice as drunk. And like, what are they just honking like mid-set, like while you're telling jokes and such, or?
Well, so like, there's been a lot of well, I mean, there's been other comics doing drive-in style shows, and I think a lot of them, especially early on, were encouraging the cars to honk. But we try to just make it as much like a normal atmosphere as we possibly can. The people mostly set up outside their car, like tailgate style, but like in their little area, so they're sectioned off.
Mhm.
And some cities don't let them set up outside the car. So Bert gets on his social media and encourages anyone who, if you get a pickup truck or a van or an SUV, do that. And then we make sure those cars all have the front row. So that way we can hear laughter, at least from the front row.
Okay.
And that way they're not honking during the set. You're actually playing the laughter. And at first, like the first night, we were like, oh man, I think I don't know if I did so great. I could only hear like the front row. But then if you walk out into the crowd when other people are on stage, you realize everyone's dying laughing. Everyone's having a blast.
It's just at first, and like you said, normally with the low ceilings at a comedy club, it's all kind of funnels towards you, so it's all just going up, dissipating up in the air. So I assume that, yeah, I'm
exactly.
Sure
Yeah. You learn to gauge whether you're doing well or not, you know. And you know, the every now and then the coolest thing though is at the very end when Bert calls us all up on stage and he's like, hey man, thank you guys so much for coming tonight. That's when everyone honks their horn and flips their lights, and that is the coolest ovation you will ever get, man. Just because it's pitch black by that time, and it's just the lights going and horns honking and people yelling, you know.
So and do you go over the rules ahead of time, like literally, hey, please don't honk your horn, wait to the end type of thing?
Yeah, I think they do that in the intro video. I think in the intro video, they kind of play that and people get the gist of it. But, you know, Bert's the perfect comic to do this kind of thing. His fans are up for a good time. And we've also just really felt like, I think comedy, I hope that this is kind of a positive, like refreshing of comedy. Whereas I think people were first of all, comedy, like these days, people are like comedy experts. They consume comedy on YouTube, podcasting, Netflix, like, people now are kind of comedy snobs, I think. And I think that they come to the comedy club a lot of times with the attitude of like, well, make me laugh, you know? And since this whole
that's what I do.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, you get paid to do that. But
right.
But these shows that we're doing now, I think people are so grateful to have a show to go to that.
Yeah, there is that element of just that, like, hey, like, I got to get out and get some kind of entertainment. So it's actually one of the few areas of entertainment that you can do that.
Dude, we did a show in Philly. They built a big stage. I mean, it felt like a rock concert, like a festival, right? They built this giant stage and the LED screens in the parking lot of the Philadelphia Eagles football stadium, you know? And it was 900 cars. It was one of the biggest shows we did, right?
That's
and
great.
I'm out there having a blast, right? Whatever. And then I forgot a joke in the middle of the set, right? It was a joke I've told 1,000 times, but I just haven't been telling it recently. And I just totally forgot like the next line. And I sat there and I just looked at the audience and I go, man, I forgot how this joke goes, right? And if I did that in a theater like 6 months ago, the audience would have been like, screw this guy, man. What are you doing, bro? You're doing a theater set. You can't forget your joke. But I did that in Philadelphia, of all cities, and the place went nuts clapping. They were like, you got this. Let's go. And I
You
was
got
like,
a COVID free pass.
Yeah, I'm like, man, everyone's being so positive. I love it.
Man. So how many more of those have you got scheduled like throughout the rest of the year?
There's only 2 more on the schedule now, Reno and San Diego. And then I think Bert's going to shut down the touring for a few months because number one, it's cold everywhere. and he takes his shirt off on stage. So
there you go. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I even noticed I was supposed to be in Vegas this week. I got invited one of the places where I think you and I have hung out in at the World Series of Comedy. I think is going on still this weekend.
I'm sure it is.
Joe Lowers, I need to get that money.
Yeah, that does not surprise me at all.
So I was supposed to go to that, and then I took a back seat on that. I'm gonna just wait out the rest of this year before doing any traveling. So it's weird for me because I haven't been on a plane since February, and I haven't been my adult life this long without being on a plane somewhere. So
trust me, it's weird for me not to see my frequent flyer miles update every week on my email thing, and you get so used to those things. I think that's where I met you, Chuck. Was it was either that festival or another one? When I made the jump to doing comedy full time, and before I moved out to LA, I was just like, what can I do to help my career? And I just decided that festivals were one of them. And I took 2 years where I just submitted to every festival. And I told my wife, hey, these are not a good investment monetarily. I was like, I'm going to lose money on these weekends. She's like, why do you go? I go, because I just think it's going to pay off long term. It's at the time you'd have to email your, a YouTube clip or literally physically mail a DVD to a booker, and I'm sure it just went on a stack with 100 other things. So I'm like, I got to go do my set in front of bookers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it definitely does help. It really does. I mean, if any other new comedians are out there, I mean, when the world does open back up, I mean, I've met some amazing comedians, and you're almost like, I mean, as an agent, you're a little bit held hostage there because you have to watch these acts. So, and sure, there's a lot of shit. But there's a lot of great acts as well. So I mean, and I do remember meeting you there. And if I remember correctly, that's when you were kind of doing the motorhome thing, driving the motorhome around, right, with the family.
So I went to the World Series of Comedy a few years, so it depends what year it was.
Okay.
But the first year I went, I think was the second year of the festival. And for people that don't know, the way they would do it back then was they'd have just now they do all these satellite competitions and you got to work with. Back then it was you mailed in a clip and they probably got 700 people mail them in, and then 101 people were asked to come to Vegas. And you come to Vegas, and 101 they'd whittle it down. So I came in 3rd place that first year I went, I think.
Okay.
And so
do you remember who won?
That year, Ryan Dalton won.
Okay.
And Landry came in 2nd, and I came in 3rd. And those are 2 of my closest friends in comedy. So it was so cool in the semifinals when all 3 of us got we went backstage, and when we weren't in front of everyone, we just all hugged each other, man, because we were like, dude, it doesn't matter who wins from here on out. We were just glad that all 3 of us got we couldn't believe that the 3 of us filtered through,
That's great.
And I'll tell you what, dude, I don't know if there's a lesson to be learned in this or not, but I still remember this one moment. That this is why I made the finals, because in the semifinals, the guy who went before me, I don't even remember who it was, but he went out there, but I think we were supposed to be on the cleaner side, I want to say. And he went out there and he just did 7 minutes on how he hates kids and how he tries to bang single moms and how it was just really abrasive stuff. And now here I am with my dad jokes coming up next. Really way to set the scene for me, buddy. Right. So I was a little ticked off where I was like, man, this is not going to bode well for me, So I came out, and the first thing out of my mouth was, I go, well, I do a lot of dad jokes, so hope this goes over well after Captain Abortion. And And when I said that, I got the whole room erupted. And I was like, oh, I got him. Go to my set. Go to. And I just
you buried that poor guy, but like you gave him took away all his chances. But
yeah, well, that's the way it goes, right? So anyways, back to the RV thing. So I came in third, and then I met Sean Kent. Sean Kent was traveling in an RV with his family at the time because they were getting ready to move to Texas, I think. And
Sean was on Last Comic Standing, right? I think that's kind of helped propel him. Yeah.
So I was talking to his wife, and so she was telling me about they had young kids and they were there and how it was so fun. But they were like in it for like 2 weeks, I think, right? I ended up going for a year and a half.
They were still in their honeymoon phase then. 2 weeks.
Yeah. So I won all this work, and I went home and I told my wife about it. I go, because we were trying to figure out what the next step was. Like, what are we gonna do? We were in Miami. At the rate I was going through my savings, because I left my family business in the car business at that time. I was like, we got to move to LA or New York, and we just got to figure out how to make that happen. So I told her, I go, I just want all this road work. Let me see if it's for real and if I actually get the work. And if so, maybe we could like live in an RV for a few months and you guys could travel with me. And then we end up in LA and we find a place. So she was like, if you can make it happen, I'm in.
So and how did you do that with the kids? Was the whole, did you sell her on the concept of homeschooling? Like homeschooling. In the RV?
Yeah, my wife was an elementary school teacher, so she was like, I think I can homeschool the kids, and so we started looking into it. I found a travel trailer that would work perfect for us. I started emailing the clubs, and the way it worked was there was if you came in first place, there were certain clubs that would offer you work. If you came in second place, there was a certain amount of clubs that would offer you work in third place, so on, right? And it was supposed to be feature work. So I emailed like all 100 clubs and I said, hey, I know that you're only offering work for first place. I came in third. I'm more of a headliner than an opener, but I'm willing, and I was barely a headliner at the time. I was like, but I'm willing to feature if the money's good enough. I go, please hit me back if you're interested, right? And so maybe if half of them hit me back, they were like, well, we need to see, your credentials for headlining. And I go, well, listen, if you book me this particular weekend, you don't have to give me a hotel. And a lot of these clubs, if they could save $300 a weekend,
anything to save money, right?
Yeah. So now all of a sudden they were all like, you could headline. So I booked up work like that.
What a great concept.
Yeah, I booked, and like I said, I'd been going to a lot of festivals at the time too. So guys like you and other like club owners that I'd met, I just started hitting all them up, and I was like, hey, I'm trying to fit this one weekend. I'd love to come. A lot of those clubs, man, like they don't have the budget where they can't like really bring in guys from, like I was in Miami at the time. They just rely, those B rooms, they rely on working the same kind of guys in that area that will drive there. And then every blue moon, they drop a ton of cash on a big name comic from LA or New York. I was not in the sweet spot for either of those things. So for a guy like me to be like, hey, I'm a good comic, but you don't have to worry about, paying me enough to where I have to pay airfare or paying my hotel, they jumped at it, Yeah. So
I'm going to get the job done, and you're going to like it, and it's going to be cheap.
Yeah.
Done.
So I got my foot in the door at a lot of clubs. I got really good at building out a new hour. I sold a ton of merch. I had a blast with my family, driving from city to city. And then I sold it to NickMom as a web series. NickMom was a Nickelodeon channel at the time. And so then I was making an extra paycheck doing that for 10 weeks and had a blast. So we were supposed to do it for 4 months, and we pulled into LA at 4 months in, and my wife said, I'm really having fun doing this. We're just getting good at it. And I go, well, let me see if I can book up more work. And so I booked up more work, and we just kept going.
That's awesome. Is that show? Is it on YouTube? Can you look it up or anywhere? The traveling series.
So NickMom is not a channel anymore. So it was all scrubbed. But I still have the files that so I'd send them the file. They would then put the bumpers on it and the graphics and make it look cool. And then they would, play. It was like little 2-minute shorts that they would play.
Did you do all the editing yourself?
So when I pitched it to them, they came back and they told me, we would like it to be poorly edited so it looks like home movies. And I go, yeah, I can do that.
No problem.
Dude, it was so poorly edited. It was shot well. I had good cameras. I just was not a
Yeah.
good editor. And I would go out of my car at like 2 in the morning because I couldn't do everyone's sleeping in the RV. So I go out in my car and do the voiceover at like 2 in the morning. And then I'd get the video, all edited. And then, this was 2012. So, we didn't have as good a Wi-Fi connections and satellite connections. So I'd have to drive into town from whatever campsite we were at, find a Starbucks at 4 in the morning, sit there and use their weak ass Wi-Fi connection to upload video. It would take like an hour and a half. I'd be asleep with my laptop letting it upload. And then the kid would come to open up Starbucks in the morning and he'd be like, "Are you homeless?" I'm like, "No, just uploading video."
I got one bar on your Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Don't open the door. It might break the screen.
Yeah. But that's what I had to do, And,
I'm picturing your son outside banging on the window outside the campsite. "Hey, your s'mores is ready, Dad."
Yeah.
Now, was it a good adventure for the kids? I mean, how old were they at the time?
They were young. I don't know how much they remember. They were probably, I think my youngest son was 2 and my older son was 4 when we started that trip, or 5,
right.
somewhere like that. But then we did keep the travel trailer for a couple of years after that. So they probably remember those later trips more. So 2 or 3 summers in a row, I would headline a comedy mix up in Vancouver. So we would drive from LA to Vancouver, and then I would do some one-nighters on the way up and some one-nighters on the way back. So we'd go for like 2 weeks, So they probably remember those trips more than they remember the big trip we were on. But we've showed them videos of it. And to answer your earlier question, so those videos aren't online, but I still have the original raw videos that I sent them. So I've actually just recently been uploading those to my Instagram TV. It's not your stories, but it's the longer videos you can put it in. So if anyone wants to see them, I have a folder there. I think I've uploaded like 6 out of 10 of them so far.
Oh, so, nice. I'll definitely go check those out.
Every 3 weeks, I'm just like, "Oh, I haven't uploaded one in a while." I upload one,
Do you miss the travel trailer doing that whole thing?
I mean, it was awesome. I mean, yeah. I mean, I wish I was that again and take my family with me and go. But it's kind of funny because traveling in the tour bus with Bert and the boys, it's like so much of it reminds me of when I was traveling with my family in the travel trailer. It's just completely different.
Yeah, a little bit more upscale now.
It's more upscale. It's drinking beers with the boys, staying up late, versus getting up early to go on hikes with my family,
Well, it is a lot of work doing the work yourself with the travel trailer, like with the whole setup and tearing down, and if it had a septic system and all that stuff, it's a pain in the ass. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, we got good at it, but it definitely. It's more than people realize. Yeah, like there were some times when I think you actually I know for a fact I remember you were at another festival I did. It was the one in Iowa that was like
the Comedy 10K.
Yeah,
Jeff Johnson's at the Diamond Joe Casino in Dubuque.
Yep. So that's one of the episodes of my NickMom thing. It was episode 1. So. I leave LA and we're driving up to Iowa. We have like 2 days to get there or something. Like we were gonna have to haul ass. And my wife didn't really feel very comfortable driving the travel trailer. So I had to do 99% of the driving. So, sometimes I was just on fumes. So we pull into a gas station. I had just gotten the trailer all like looked at, like to make sure it was fit for the trip. I pull into a gas station and this guy who works there, one of the mechanics, walks over to me. And he goes, "Hey man, I heard when you pulled in, your trailer didn't sound right." And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever, dude. I thought this guy, I came from the car business. I'm like, this guy's putting me together, whatever." And so he's walking around looking at it, and he's like, "Yeah, man, look, I don't think this is safe." And I look over, and he was right. One of my tires was completely gutted, right? And I go, "Oh my god, what happened?" It's because one of my the bearings had broken. And so that tire was just like, getting shredded. And I'm like, oh my God, now we're stuck in a place called Needles, California in the middle of the desert. The guy's like, "Hey man," he's like, "I might have those, joints or whatever they were called." He's like, "But if not, I'm gonna have to order them. It's gonna take a few days." I'm like, "All right, whatever." So the guy goes and he looks and he's digging through this shed and he's like, "Dude, these will work." And I'm like, "Oh, thank God." Right. So the guy puts my trailer up on jacks and he pulls that tire off and he switches them both out. He gives me a new tire. I mean, super grateful. It definitely, he showed them to me once I got up in the jack and we looked at him. I'm like, oh yeah, dude, we would have never made it, right? We would have been stranded on the side of the road somewhere. So it cost $2,000 though. And I think first place for that festival, I think it was like $2,000. I think they gave out 10 overall, but first
I think it was $3,000. It was $3,000 if I remember correctly.
So I was like, I got to win first place now. I go, I'm out this cash. Like I got to win first place. So then we hit a storm going through like Amarillo, Texas. Like tornadoes are hitting us. It ripped a panel off the side of the trailer. And that was a blessing actually, where I go, thank God we got that thing fixed yesterday, because we would have not survived this storm with wonky tires, Yeah. And so I pulled into that 10K, literally like they were starting the show I was supposed to be on. And I was like trying to keep my eyes awake, pulling in. And I like parked. I told my wife, you go check in the hotel. I smell like shit, but I'm running over to do my set. And I went over, and like for the first time of any, I was just so tired and out of it and not in the right mindset. I got bounced from the first round. And I was like, I go, well, I guess the moral, it's not always like a movie where you win the money, you just lost or whatever. I go, now we're just stuck in Dubuque, Iowa for a weekend. So
that's when you go hit the craps table.
Yeah, I think I lost there, but I did get to hang out with you and some other guys. And I always tell people, man, if you go to a festival, like you want to have good sets, because people are watching your sets and they're like, obviously you're auditioning for work, not just to win the festival. I go, but more important than anything, if you lose, be a good sport about it and be someone who's cool. Don't go sit in your room and sulk because you just wasted money being there. Go hang out with the industry that you came to have watch, So I've always maximized that, I mean, not just like from a superficial standpoint, but I just like hanging out with people, and I don't like to be alone. I like to meet new people and see people I haven't seen. I mean, I got to be pretty good friends with Yoder for a while just because he was at all the same festivals, and I loved hanging out with Eric and you and a lot of the other guys that would frequent those festivals. So, dude, it's always
I agree. I 100% agree. Even like there's definitely a lot of agents that kind of like hold themselves up on a pedestal a little bit, I think, and that aren't very, I guess, approachable. So I've always felt like, I've always looked at it with the comedian side. Like, I need you guys as much as you need me. It's a team. So some people don't look at it that way. They're like, hey, you need me, and I'll call you when I'm ready. But no, so I am just the same way. I love the festivals. I'm pretty approachable. I love to go see new people and talk to new people. And they're great. I miss them. I miss them tremendously.
Yeah.
I mean, Montreal, I was all excited to go to that. I mean, I literally, the first trip I had canceled was the first big thing that canceled was South by Southwest. I was going to that. And I was like, all right. I was actually my flight was, I was going to go to South by Southwest for like 3 days and then go to Vegas just for the weekend. And since I was already flying out, I told my wife, like, since I'm already out, like in Texas, I might as well just swing up to Vegas for a couple of days. Yeah. So, I miss those festivals. I mean, there's some really great ones. I mean, and then right behind that was the Laughing Skull that was canceled. And I mean, obviously I love them, but
dude, Laughing Skull's another example, man. I never did great in that festival. I never made it past like a round or two. Just because that room's a little bit more alty, and I don't know. I just never really connected in that room. It did fine, but not enough to like, advance in a festival that has really great talent. But that was how I got the NickMom set was Brian Ballinger saw me there, and then he called, and then I built a friendship with him, and then he called me up, out of the blue, and was like, "Hey man, we're doing one of these NickMom shows in Florida. I want to see if I could book you for it because I know you have a lot of family material." And I was like, hey, I'm on the road with my family. Like, I'm in Canada right now. And he's like, all right, well, he's like, there's one more episode in New York. Let me see if I have if I have a spot on that. And I go, all right. So then he hit me back and he goes, yeah, he's like, the finale episode is in Times Square. He's like, I got one spot. He's like, you could fly to New York and do it. I go, all right. So I left my family in Vancouver.
At a campsite.
At a campsite. I got on a plane. I flew to New York. I did the show that night. It was my first TV credit. I went to the after party at a pub, and we're just all like hanging out. And then a lady who worked for NickMom, I didn't really know who she was, just talking to her about the show that night. And she's like, "Are you gonna do more sets while you're in town, Dave?" And I said, "No, I got to get on a flight at 6 a.m. tomorrow because I left my family in an RV park, and I gotta work the club this weekend." So she's like, "Oh, what do you mean?" So I told her the whole story. She was like, "That's really interesting. Keep in touch with me." And she gave me her business card, and she was VP of programming for NickMom. And I go, "Oh, look at that." So
you never know who you meet in this business, right?
You never know. I flew in, did the TV set, met her, flew back to Vancouver, and then a month later, when my wife and I decided to go travel some more, I emailed her and I said, "Hey, I know you really liked my story about being in the RV. I go, here's a pitch for my wife doing a blog," because it was Nick Mom, right? I go, "Here's a web series pitch and here's a reality show pitch." And she hit me back and goes, "I love the idea for the reality show, but we only have the budget for a web series." Yeah. So we went back and forth on it, and that's what they ended up liking and buying.
Wow, that's awesome. So you got paid, this just never was released, basically.
No, it was released. It was on TV. It was 2 minutes.
It was just before YouTube clips and such, I guess. All right.
Yeah. Well, I think they put it on YouTube too. It's just that that Nick Mom thing is gone now, so they wiped everything.
Oh, okay.
It was on their website. That's what it was. It wasn't on YouTube. It was on like Vimeo on their website. But they played it as like, it would be like one show would end, and then it would be like the Williamson Road Journals. It would be like a 2-minute short, and then they would start their new 30-minute sitcom that would come on after that.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Yeah, we have a history in my family with traveling in a pop-up camper.
Pop-ups are awesome.
My wife did it as a kid growing up, and she talked me into it when our first son was born. And then I was like, all right. So I remember like at 9 months old, like I'm changing his diaper inside a pop-up, like on the showroom floor or whatever. And then next thing we know, we bought one, and we had two up until like for 15 years. And then the kids don't want to go anymore. That's why we stopped doing it. So it wasn't cool to go anymore. So
that's who I bought my travel trailer from, was a guy in Miami who bought this. It was his dream to buy this, like, they had like a pop-up like you're talking about, and then he bought this 25-foot nice travel trailer, and he like it reminded me of my dad with boats. Like he customized every little thing to where you put salt and pepper shakers here, blah, 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 like everything was perfect. And then he goes, "My kids were teenagers, they wouldn't go with me anywhere." It's like, so I bought it a year ago, and now I'm just going to give up and sell it. So I bought it for him at a good price, and he was so happy that my family was buying it, was going to use it to like go to family trips. So like I sent that guy photos the whole time we were on the trip.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, it's funny how that works out. Your kids start getting into sports and like friends, girlfriends, etc. And like, we don't want to go down to Myrtle Beach.
Yeah,
camping. Like, all right, cool. But my wife has made me promise, and I haven't yet made that promise, that after the kids are out of the house, that we will purchase one and still go do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we'll see.
Dude, Chuck, it was really cool, man. Catalina Island is like 25 miles off the coast of LA here, Yeah. And I took my family camping there last month, and it was awesome, dude. Like the only way to get there is by ferry, more or less. And Forrest Shaw, who's another comic from Florida, is one of my best friends. He just brought his boat out here, so he's got a boat out here, and he just dropped us off. We got all our camping gear and jumped on Forrest's boat, and he dropped us off in Catalina, and we camped for the weekend, and it was so neat, man. So if you come out here, if you ever bring the missus out here after your kids are gone, that'd be a good trip to take.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I will definitely do that. Now, to pivot a bit, like now, did you get your start in stand-up in Charlotte?
Kinda, yeah.
Weren't you a part of like a sketch comedy group called The Perch?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
One of the funnest things I've ever done in my life, man. Yeah. And I'll tell you.
That's before stand-up? Is that how that worked?
Yeah. So I graduated college. And
where'd you go to school?
I went to Auburn in Alabama.
Okay. All right.
And my wife, who was my girlfriend in college, she graduated a year and a half before me because she was older and smarter than me. So
she got 5-year plan.
Yeah, exactly. So she took a job in Charlotte. So I'd go up and visit Charlotte every now and then. And one of my best friends growing up lived up there too. So it was really fun to go up and visit. And then I moved back to Miami, was trying to figure out what to do in my life after college. And like Goodwill Hunting, I just told my parents finally, like, I got to go see what's up with this girl before I decide anything else, right? So I just packed up my car and drove up to Charlotte and looked for a part-time job, got a job with Red Bull. And I always wanted to do something with comedy, and I just didn't know how to get into it, right? And I was a writer. I was freelance writing for some publications, and I always thought maybe that would be my way into the entertainment industry. And my wife told me, I'm going to take you on a date tonight. I found out about this place that's really cool, and I think you'll like it, because she knew I was a huge Saturday Night Live fan. So we went to the Perch, which was just. And did you ever go there? You ever watch a show there?
You know what? I don't think I did. I know I've seen pictures. It's kind of like a black box theater, right? Just all and
Dude, it was
just a
so
weird
awesome.
Sketch comedy show. Random.
It was in this like kind of gentrified like area town, and it was on the second floor, so they called it the Perch because it overlooked that intersection. And it was like you could pack 80 people in there, right? And I'm sure we were breaking fire codes. So it had been around for like 8 years by the time I joined, because I went and watched the show, and it was a BYOB license at the time. So you'd bring your own beer and you'd sit there with your buddies. It was all couches it was just that didn't match. It was just couches and coffee tables people had like donated over the years. And you'd sit there and you'd watch a show, and a live band would jam in between the sketches, right? And at the end of that, I go, this is blew my mind. I go, that looks like so much fun. So I approached them and I said, hey, I'm a writer. Can I write sketches for you? And they said, well, we just write our own sketches. You got to just audition to be in the group. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm a good performer or not.
Now, were you a writer, or are you just making that shit up to get in?
No, I mean, I was writing like high school sports and writing articles for some newspapers and things like that. And I was an English minor, creative writing minor in college. So, I was a good writer, but I just didn't know if I knew how to write comedy or not. So I went and auditioned, and I got in, and I think to this day, part of the reason why I got in is because I had a really reliable car, and they had a road gig coming up, and I think they needed me to drive. But I got in, and I ended up really taking to it and loving it. And I had a very full circle moment. So for 2 years, the way it would work is you'd say, all right, I'm going to be in the show the next 2 weekends, right? You'd have to commit to 2 weekends at a time, because on Monday, we'd get together, we'd submit our sketches that we all wrote, whatever sketches we decided we're going to go into the show. The person who wrote it could cast it. And then we would practice it the whole week. We would do that show that weekend. And then the next week, we didn't have to go to auditions. We would just do the same show two weekends in a row, right? So I almost did every single weekend for 2 years. I hardly ever sat out a week, right? And all my buddies, I was in my early 20s at the time. So all my girlfriend and it was now my wife, and all my buddies, they'd, go out on Friday and Saturday nights because they had 9 to 5 jobs. That was their night to go out. Well, I was doing shows till 1 a.m, and I would rush down to Connolly's downtown to meet them for like one more drink before last call. And I'd sit on the same bar stool, and I would tell them like, oh man, the sketch I wrote made it in. I got big laughs. And I got paid like 20. You spend a whole weekend doing that, and I get paid like $20 for the weekend. Like whatever the tips were, we'd divvy up between the 8 of us. Right.
Yeah.
And then, normally we spent more than that on beer, throughout the show. So I did that for 2 years, just having a blast with this really talented group of people. And fast forward to last year or 2 years ago, whatever it was, I got invited to go on the theater tour with Bert. And it was my very first weekend opening for Bert in theaters. So the first night we did Raleigh, the second night we did Charlotte. And then Bert always says to the audience, like, where are we going to go drinking after this, before COVID? And so someone in the audience yells, Connolly's. So he goes, all right, we're going to a place called Connolly's. So we come down to Connolly's with like 500.
I know exactly where my seat is.
Yep. So we roll into Connolly's with 500 people. Right?
Oh my gosh.
And it was for some reason a slow night that night. Otherwise, the owner, Tommy's there. He's like, Davey, what's happening? And I'm like, hey man, you're about to have a good night. And he just kept going, like, you guys are making me so much money. He's Irish. And he left the bar open that night. All my buddies came from that still live in Charlotte came. And I sat there in the same bar stool I did 20 years ago. And I was like, everyone's taking pictures with me. The owner's taking pictures with me. They're closed, but they're still, serving us drinks, and we're telling stories. And it was just a full circle moment for me where I was like, I used to dream about what's happening right now.
Right.
In the same spot. And now here I am with people like buying me drinks. It was just so cool, man.
That is awesome, man. Yeah, I know exactly where that place is too.
Yeah.
I got in trouble there once with a comedian, Kevin Bozeman. You know Kevin?
Oh, yeah.
He was in town opening for Hannibal Buress, and yeah, good times. So
I can't wait to hear that story when you're not trying to change the subject.
Right. Yeah. Well, put it this way: my wife and I have had maybe 5-6 arguments in our life.
That was one of them.
And that was
3 of them.
That was one of the evenings. That's awesome. So to pivot again, so you obviously I follow you on the socials and such, and like you just seem like this outdoorsy guy. I mean, I know you golf. We try to get golf lined up every time you were in town. It never seems to work out since you're, I get it. You're busy. You're a big rock star now. So, and you have a podcast as well. Cause you can see if you're listening to the podcast later, Dave's wearing a hat that says meat on it. And if you follow him on the socials, you realize that I feel like Bert Kreischer is never going to not have you open for him because you do a lot of the cooking for them, right?
Look, there's a lot of people that are funny out there. There's a lot of people that are a good hang, but there's no one that can make a brisket like I can on a sidewalk in Tampa downtown, 20 feet from the theater door. Okay. Yeah. I've made myself indispensable with barbecue. Yes.
That is the best. Like you get into the ground floor like that, and you're always going to have a spot there. So
it's funny, man. Cause everyone tells you for years, everyone told me like, find your niche. And I'm like, I mean, I'm a pretty generic white guy, married straight white guy who's, fairly clean. I mean, I don't really have a niche. I just try to be a good comic and try to be a nice guy. Like, that's it, like it's something that's going to jump off the page at you, know? And then it was funny because when I started kind of getting known for the barbecue, because I just started doing it as a hobby. I just love eating good barbecue, and they didn't have a good place in LA at the time. They do now. But I would go work, Cap City and other places in Texas, and I'd be like, man, this is incredible. Like, they don't have barbecue like this in LA. So I just told my wife, like, I'm just going to teach myself how to do it. And I started posting it on Instagram, and all of a sudden I'd go out to hang out at the comedy club, and it's all anyone wanted to talk to me about. So I'm like, I think how
to do it. I mean, shit. I watched and I just salivate watching. I was like, oh my god, this looks so good,
dude. It was totally by accident. It was me. It was something authentic that I just stumbled into, and then now it's what people know me as, and it's what people associate with me with, and I'm fine with that, dude. It makes me so happy that complete strangers are like trying to cook their first brisket ever, and they tag me in it, and they're like, "How's it look, Dave?" Like awesome. I love that some random person in North Dakota is like excited to show me the ribs that they cooked. I'm like, I never met this guy, but he's excited to show me. Like,
do you interact with them, or you just kind of let it go?
I try to answer all of them, man.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I always get people hitting me up and asking me for recipes, and it's really hard. Like it's a lot of, it's like someone asking you like, how do I do comedy? It's like, you just got to do it, man. It's like, you got to
I guess you can give them general guidelines, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I try. Yeah. I mean, I could tell them, look, 225 degrees, try to keep it low, salt and pepper rubbed, keep it simple, like cook to 2 or 3 internal, but none of that's like going to make it come out like, my brisket or Franklin's brisket or Aaron's brisket until you just do it. You know what I mean?
Right. What happens if, say your wife says, I'm going to become a vegetarian? Do you keep doing it and just more for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, look, I eat a lot of salads too, but I just don't post those on Instagram. They're not really interesting.
Yeah, you don't want to become known as a salad comedian.
Yeah, and there's definitely, like last week we got back from a 3-week run, and I ate mostly salads all week. I was like, we ate so much barbecue and drank so much beer on that last tour. I was just like, I needed to take a break. Let's put it that way.
Right. Yeah. No, I get it. It makes perfect sense. So, and I see you. So you live in El Segundo, is that correct?
I love El Segundo. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I I have one of my favorite watering holes is the El Segundo Brewing Company. So
I know it well.
Yeah, and I've seen you post it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've been there many times. So
Yeah.
I have a buddy of mine that I went to high school with, and about 5 or 6 years ago, we decided, hey, life's too short, and we're big music fans, so we would once a year meet somewhere to go see a band somewhere. So, and there's been a couple of times we've been to LA, and it's been at like the Forum. I think we saw Foo Fighters there one time at the Forum, and then Temple of the Dog right before I guess Chris Cornell passed away. So, but we'd always stop, and because there's not a whole lot of drinking spots near the Forum, so we always go to El Segundo Brewing Company first.
Dude, next time you're out here, Chuck, just go ahead and build a day into. We'll get a group together to hang out, and we'll get
golf, meat.
Yeah, and beer. And I was gonna say we could do a little mini pub crawl just between all the breweries that are in my area, man. There's quite a few that are really great. So
nice.
We could just Uber from brewery to brewery.
I like it. I'm down with it.
We'll play the par 3 by my house because we can get through that in under 2 hours, and then we'll go beer hopping.
Nice, man. That's awesome, buddy. Well, I guess it's getting to the top of the hour, so I just I'm just happy to have you on, man. I mean, good to chat and catch up with you, and let the world know who Dave Williamson is if you don't already. And I'd love to let you hear, I guess, fade out the show with any good stories that you might want to end up with. It's kind of like this is where we call the check drop. So we do that, and a lot of guys finish up with like their biggest hell gig, I guess.
Oh wow, hell gigs. Okay, I got one.
All right.
And first of all, before I forget too, man, if you guys like barbecue, follow me on Instagram at Dave W Comedy.
Yes, definitely.
You can see it right there because I do post mostly barbecue stuff. And then in the off chance anybody likes water polo, I also have a water polo podcast with Tony Azevedo, who's like the Michael Jordan of water polo. So that was another positive that came out of the quarantine is I've been trying to talk him into doing a podcast for years, and he's always so busy. And so like week 1 of the shutdown, I texted him and I'm like, "You ready to podcast?" He's like, "Let's do it."
Are you into? I know you. Your kids are into water polo. Are you into it as well?
Yeah, I played at Auburn and I've coached most of my life. So yeah, I coach. The reason why I been having a hard time committing to doing this is because I coach high school water polo. We have practice during this time, but we actually didn't have practice today, so that's why it worked out.
All right, perfect.
So
I'm glad you chose the check drop over water polo.
So it's for the kids, Chuck. Trying to be a good mentor. So no, I worked cruise ships for a little while. I kind of worked the system. They kind of like the cruise ships normally want you to be a cruise ship guy. It's like you're either in or you're out, right? And right. I really needed the paycheck, but I didn't want to be on a ship every other week. So
yeah, we need you 3 weeks out of the month and put a smile on your face and wear your name tag.
Yeah, so I milked it for as long as I could, like just booking like one ship every like 3 or 4 months, But my first week ever working a ship was it was the big Royal Caribbean one, the Oasis class, and they paired me up with another comic who was like one of their main guys. And it was one of the clubs. It was one of the ships that had like it was a club, right? So you were doing 2 or 3 shows a night every night you were on the ship. Okay. And it was like 17 shows in 7 days or something like that, right? Jesus. But you're only doing like 25, 30 minutes, and having a lot of shows was good because it kept you from spending money at the bar and it gave you more opportunity to sell merch. So I kind of liked having a lot of shows. But anyways, this other guy was like their main guy. He had his cruise ship set down, right? I'm figuring it out because it's my first time. So he was closing every show. I was opening. Sometimes you flip flop, but I was like, I don't have an ego. I don't mind opening, right?
Gotta get my sea legs first.
Yeah. And so I literally was like trying out different sets every night, seeing what worked, what didn't, was doing good, getting by, feeling good about it, right? After like 3 or 4 nights in, the guy tells me like, "Hey man, we do a theater show on the last night, and that there's gonna be kids there. So just say you're not allowed to repeat material you've repeated, earlier in the week. So just save like 30 minutes for that show." And I was like, well, I wish you told me that before I burned like 2 hours of material the first 4 nights.
That's a lot of material to just come up
Yeah.
with if you haven't already burned everything.
Yeah. Especially when you're trying to hold back your kid-friendly stuff.
I think like normal people that aren't in the comedy business just don't know anything about that. They go, oh no, we're just telling another 30 minutes of this.
Yeah,
most people don't realize that some guys will never have more than an hour ever. Like they just keep doing the same hour. So it's hard. It's hard to write good, successful comedy.
So I go to my notebook and I'm like trying to like pick out like what 30 minutes to like hold back, right? So there's this one joke I have that is a good joke, but I hadn't done it yet that week because when I submitted my video to get work with cruise ships, they told me it was about owning a handgun. And like gun control was like a divisive topic at the time. So they were like, don't do anything about the gun, right? So I hadn't done it. So I go, I think I can do that bit, but just leave those parts out of it. You know what I mean? And I think it'll be fine. So that was my plan. So I go into the theater. I'm going first. I come out. I see kids in the front row. I'm like, oh man. So I go into I do my first little opening line. I get a laugh. I calm down a little bit. I go, this is going to be fine. So then I go into that gun bit, but I'm just doing like a neutered version of the gun bit, right? In the middle of and it's getting laughs. It's going fine. But in the middle of it, this waiter comes running down the stairs, comes running up to the stage. This isn't at the comedy club, mind you. This is the theater, like where they would be doing like a production of Cats on the other nights and stuff, right?
Right.
This guy comes right up to the front of the theater and he goes, shh, shh, shh. He's like shushing me, right? And I go, oh, in my brain now, it's totally unrealistic. But in my brain, because I was freaking out, I was like, oh, man, maybe that waiter was sitting next to the cruise director, and the cruise director knows I'm not supposed to do my gun bit. This waiter is trying to save me, right? So then I just kind of like pivot and like skip the bit, right? And now I'm just going into my next bit, and I'm flailing, and I'm just trying to keep it together. And this guy's now he's like waving at me, and he's going like, shh. And I can't think, and I'm freaking out. And I finally go, hey guys, can y'all just give me a minute? I'm really sorry about this. And I walk over to the front of the stage and I bend down and I go, what's wrong, dude? And I think this dude's gonna tell me like, hey, the ship's sinking and you got to tell everyone, or like I can't imagine what would be so important. You interrupt the show in the theater, right? The waiter looks up at me. He goes, listen, this guy, and he holds up a cruise card he's got for a dude. He goes, I can't remember what he ordered, and I can't remember where he's sitting. He's like, can you help me out, brother? And I'm like, are you serious? And the guy's got this thick Caribbean accent. He's like, yes, I can't remember where he's sitting, and I need to know what he wants to drink. Like, and I'm like, bro, I can't believe you're sitting. And meanwhile, the audience is getting tense. They're like, what's happening? And they're starting to hear the murmurs. And so I just hold up the mic. I go, I can't believe this. And the audience is like, what? And I go, you know what? I can't even say it. I go, here, dude, you do it. And I hand him the microphone. And he goes, Dennis Johnson, I can't remember where you're sitting or what you ordered. When that guy said that, the place erupted. Right? And so I take the microphone back, and then I just spent 10 minutes on it. I was like, Dennis, where are you? I go, come clean, Dennis. You're moving chairs, right? And then Dennis raises his hand. I go, I hope you ordered something good. I hope you didn't interrupt my set for like soda water or something.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just buried that dude for the next 20 minutes, and it probably saved my set, honestly.
Yeah, probably did. Comedy is so unpredictable, isn't it?
Dude, it's crazy. But that's the difference between like, so when you talk about like, you see guys who are like doing the festival shows like we're talking about, or a comic who thinks they're ready to do like a corporate gig, or like any comic who's got some decent jokes could go and crush. I think there's a difference of when you become seasoned and you can survive no matter what, right?
Right. To be able to pivot on a dime in that scenario, right?
There's a big difference between all the elements being placed like perfectly for you to succeed and you succeed, right? There's a difference between everything being against you and you succeed anyways, And so that's one of those moments where I'm like, oh man, I'm glad I survived that. Well,
that seems like a good place to get out of this from here, though, man. So Well, dude, I appreciate you sharing your time. I know you're busy, and kudos and all your success with Bert and just your comedy career in general, man. It's been cool to see your star rise, and I hope nothing but good things for you in the future, man.
Thanks, Chuck. I hope to see you in Charlotte sometime soon. And thanks
Definitely.
for being one of the good guys in the industry, man.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Cool, man. Well, everybody out there, if you need a comedian for anything, go to summitcomedy.com. I guess we'll just see everybody next week. All right. Toodles. See you, Dave.
See you, buddy.
Bye.